Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 20 of Stat Check, your number one show for us. Uh, it's not wrong.
It
I
is.
am Idis, and this is episode 20, The Kids Table, getting off to a strong start. I am joined by Anthony and Jeremy, also much better known as Curie on the internet.
Yeah.
But Jeremy, because that's his name, and we should use it occasionally to make sure he doesn't forget it.
Sometimes.
And we are not joined by Nathan this week. Nathan, unfortunately, is doing like actual real work that has consequences and gets published and stuff like that. Whatever. Anyway, all you need to know is he's not here, which means that we are going to do. We've basically lost all of our impulse control. Jeremy is here to, in some sense, be that, but Jeremy's just as bad as us, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
If
I'm
not
not going
worse.
to keep this on the rails at all.
No, so the game plan is to keep this absolutely nowhere near the rails. We're going to do a very small bit of stats because Jeremy is obviously involved with the stats side of it as well. And then we're going to just talk Warhammer a whole bunch. So if you're in the chat right now, the best thing you can do for that is enable us by asking us really cool questions because we will go down the rabbit hole basically as far as you guys want us to tonight. That is the entire premise of the show today, is we're just going to talk 40k at as high a level as we're physically capable to. We're all WC caliber players. Let's hope that that's good enough to contain what is a very, very impulse control free show. How you guys doing?
I am good. Played an RTT on the weekend. Got to play as Creations Bile. That was an experience. It's much better on GW terrain than the WDC terrain I was practicing it on. You get shot just so much less, and when you're not getting shot, that means you're punching. So, thumbs up. Love that. That strength bump is relevant more often than I am willing to admit. The movement bump is funny, but not necessarily like, just an extra inch of movement. Like, it only comes up every so often.
It's there. You out threat your opponent a little bit more occasionally.
Yeah, just
especially in the mirror. It's you got to stay an inch further away than I do, and I get to inch closer every turn.
Yeah. And what it means is that I'm not going to respect how close they can get to me. I'm just going to run at them because I'm vile, and there's not consequences when you play that army. So, yeah, that army is really, really good at getting you to X and 1 regardless of skill level, and the upper end of it is not easy. You're just a man with damage 2. So you have 2 things that don't do damage 2. And if either of those things die while you're against -1 damage, it's sketchy. So past that, it's mostly...
Out of genuine curiosity, what's your plan at Morty and 40?
Fight on death? I'll probably just windmill jam into the front of them, and then the Possessed will drag down as many Marines as they make contact with through weight of attacks. And then the second wave, I'll do that again, but something will hit the Blight spawn, and then we'll be okay.
So there is a plan there. It's just not a particularly fun one.
It's not a plan that involves me having anything left at the end. It's just like everybody dies.
That is very fair.
So, and Morty dies fast to most of those combat characters, so it's like okay, but they're designed to auto wound things, so we skip a bunch of his shit.
Yeah, don't have to worry about the fact that he turns everything else off.
Yeah, it's just like, all right, whatever.
It's so depressing playing a reroll army at Morty. Like, I'm bringing it up because the guy won a GT this weekend with Morty Inexorable. Because from what I understand, he just played 5 people who were completely unequipped to deal with Mortarion. Which is like my favorite thing. I took him to an RTT recently and saw it. Like Necrons, if you kill their guns fast enough, cannot touch Morty. It is so funny. It's great. I thoroughly enjoyed that data slate being even like the tiniest bit semblance of competitive because he is good fun.
Yeah, I agree.
What about yourself, Jeremy? You ran a tournament this weekend, right?
Yes, I ran GT out of my local game store. It's something that we are now going to be doing quarterly. We're calling them Capital Clash. Lots of fun. We had 36 people in attendance, I think. The event was won by a friend of the show, Nick Blackburn, who ran 1,000 Suns with Flamers. Go fygure.
I'm sure we won't see that pop up more at all.
I'm not painting that right now.
No, not at all. Definitely not. It beat the Ymir Beam Dead list on the top table, which was a fascinating game to actually watch take place on Data Scry Salvage.
Absolute hero.
Interesting.
Look, man, if you can't be good, be lucky. Like, sure, being good is preferable, but luck gets you just as far.
And
I
if you
will
can't do
admit
that, bring flamers.
that the one of the hecatons exploding in the Ymir player's backfield certainly helped the Thousand Suns player, but the game was played at such a high skill level it was just impressive to watch.
See,
Although
that's
there
why you
was
should play Alpha Legion in Flamers so that you can make it auto explode.
they still have that strat. I thought it was Night Lords.
No, they
No,
have
it's
that.
Alpha Legion.
Oh, they
It's
still have
Alpha
that.
Legion.
Oh, that's hilarious.
There you go, Anthony. That's what I'm bringing to Mythicos.
You won't.
I know, but it's funny.
Yeah,
to
and the rest of
say.
the weekend was just
Yeah.
great. 5 rounds of amazing Warhammer. Got to watch a little bit of every single game, so it was really interesting. But by far we've talked about this to death, but by far the most interesting bit was watching a player's reaction to the beam mechanic from Votann. Because you would have a player say like, yeah, my Terminators have illusory supplication. You can't hit them on anything better than a 4, and you can't reroll against them. There's a unit of Flamers right behind them, right? I'm going to shoot the Flamers, and I'm going to pay to reroll because they have a token. So you mean I don't have to roll? Oh no!
Yeah, it's bad.
There was
bad.
a lot of this is dumb, this is bullshit, and this is oh no.
Yeah.
Beam is not an okay mechanic under any circumstances. Remember when that was a thing that Morty's gun had, and it was kind of funny, and now it's
Morty's gun also had the balance of, if I remember correctly, it could also hit your own models. Same with the Avatar's beam.
I don't know. Who cares? The more
it's also
thing
like
Morty
one
is,
shot
like,
and
you're not
12
taking
inches. So
angles
you
to
don't
fire
care.
Morty's pistol.
Bad.
Good. So, did you enjoy yourself? It's not the first event you've run, but is it the first?
Yeah,
this is the
second GT I've run actually. I was running RTTs for a while and basically have taken over running the local GTs because people want to play, and I travel for events enough that I'm perfectly happy to run them, and everyone thankfully trusts me to be good on rules and be a fair arbiter when issues do arise. Which thankfully this weekend we didn't have any major issues, which is always a good sign.
And weird, given you had Votann in attendance, but sure, we'll take it.
Well, we only had 3 Votann players. 1 dropped after day 1, and the other 2 are high enough caliber players that they read their books fairly well in advance or know to ask me when they don't understand something.
Or nobody caught them.
I watched both of them pretty closely. No one.
I'm joking. I have a lot of respect for at least one of them. The other one's French.
You got to keep an eye on that Francois guy.
Hey, man moved from Leviathan Warriors to League to Votann Beam Dead. He knows exactly what he wants.
He knows what he's about, and shout out to him for that, for doing the thing that even I have too much pride to do.
And it was perfect because this weekend upcoming, we have a team event in Montreal where he's going back to Kraken, and I'm running the Votann list that he trialed for me this weekend. So I just know exactly what the list can do now.
Yeah, thanks.
Field testing, it works.
Yes.
Oh, and my players, because they love me so much, got me this.
Oh, that's cute.
A hammer and a gavel and a gavel.
That'll definitely, when we eventually get around to getting avatars done for like the blog roll and stuff like that, you're going to be a judge's hammer. I think that's definitely appropriate.
Oh yeah, Innes, what were you up to this weekend?
Absolutely f all. Unfortunately, I was on call this weekend, so I decided to just take it easy. So I went through to my local store, picked up some Thousand Sun stuff. I picked up like 10 rubrics, 10 Scarab cults, and a few characters, and built up the standard sort of pattern Thousand Suns list, which I'm building and painting for an RTT this weekend. There's so much trim on those models, by the way. I don't know if anybody's ever expressed this before. Wow, Thousand Suns have a lot of trim. I'm going to be trying to find the absolute minimal way to paint the least of it possible while still making it look vaguely passable. Somebody asked in the chat what my list is because I mentioned it earlier. It's bog standard. It's 15 Flamers, a Fate Skimmer, and then like 25 rubrics, 10 Terminators, and 3 characters. And I think I'm running the Rhino because I have a Rhino and it's less to paint. And I quite like it. And fuck Sun Sharks. Yeah, that's all I got. Yep. I'm looking forward to playing that. I've played Thousand Suns a bunch before. It's kind of nice to get a few of the models out that I've not used in a while since they were in like 8th edition soup lists. My Ahriman has been through the fucking ringer. Dude's won so many events without any Thousand Suns model supporting him. It's like just Ahriman by himself and
just a man alone in a Supreme Command detachment.
My the peak one I think I ran it was Heretic Astari's detachment with Ahriman and 3 Foul Blight Spawn. Back when Foul Blight Spawn were D6 shots, 2d6 strength, AP3 damage 3.
Ooh.
That thing was so brutal.
Yeah, 2d6 shots, 4 rerolls to hit, or 4 rerolls to wound in a bubble, and just YOLO, baby. Just hope for the best.
Yeah.
My first ever game against Matty, one of my teammates, I killed 2 Palace and 2 squads of Custodian Guard in the first 2 turns with 2 Fell Blight spawn. Just like running at him, like dead. Take it off.
That model's still so good.
It's so dumb. Yeah, he's great now, and he's only damage 2 now. But you do get that thick strength, which is nice because there was something pitiful about rolling strength 2 on him before.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's been me. I've not been up to much outside of that. I'm just trying to think. No, I didn't even record any content last week. I was kind of crap on that just because I was on call. I was like, if I try to do an interview and I get a phone call midway through, I'm going to look like an idiot. So I'm just not going to bother.
Yeah, it's a bit rough, right?
Yeah, it's a shame, but it's only like once every 5-6 weeks, so it's not too bad. Yeah, besides that, I'm just prepping for coming through to the Mythicos Words Christmas GT thing.
Yes, it was a charity event.
That's about it.
A charity event that is going to be probably one of the most stacked events outside of LVO you've been to.
Even including, right? It's far more likely that you play a good player at this Mythicos event than
That's
LVO.
true.
It reminds me of some of the 36-person GTs I've been to in the UK, which is saying a lot for America.
Yeah.
Because America's so dispersed. Like, you go to a 36-person GT in the UK, there could be 6 people from Team England, 3 people from Team Scotland, and 2 people from Team Wales there. It feels a little bit like that looking at the roster so far.
Yeah.
Which I'm looking
that actually
forward.
describes the event that I just ran. We had 6 of Team Canada in attendance, and then another half dozen that are applicants for this year. So it's great for me because it meant that I got to watch players.
A bunch of people play, yeah. Oh, yeah, Sam is correct. I did in Army, my first ever technically paid 40k content, I wrote an article for Goonhammer about the 2 new Necron Army of Renowns after I played Nicholas's at Coventry. I was massively enamored with the Annihilation Legion, so I offered to write the article for it. So that is on Goonhammer. You can give that a read. It is good fun. I'm quite happy with it. Right, shall we do a brief touch on the stats, Jeremy? As you might have noticed from the thumbnail, which we're going to continue to do, if you scroll all the way back to the thumbnail, you can see the win rates for the top 5 factions this week. That is something that we will be continuing to do for the foreseeable future until we come up with a different idea for thumbnails, or we will just roll with it, whatever.
Yep. So I'm just going to touch on any factions that are above 55% and below 45%, because everything else is sitting in the sweet spot that we like and that apparently GW likes. First on the chopping block is Harlequins. 13 players. They had a 65.3% win rate and 3 top 4s for an overrep of 2.33. Yeah, GW, fix them, please. We've only been asking for this for 8 months now.
Oh boy.
I don't understand why they've not just increased fucking points on Harlequin players.
I just think they need to Harlequin players need to learn to just keep their heads down. Like, why? Just chill. Like, coordinate with your friends who also play Harlequins. There's 6 of you. Just reach out to each other. Be like, listen, bro, this is your week. You got to go on 5 for the rest of us. And, just cycle it through. Some people are going to have a shit week. Unlucky. But, heads down, boys. Come on.
Please, for the love of all that is holy, put troop points up.
Light just, isn't a benefit anymore, by the way. It just, doesn't do anything. The whole thing is a strat. It's okay.
Yep.
Hey, the boats get to advance and shoot. That is not irrelevant. It gives you some shooting on the turn.
It's pretty irrelevant.
No, it does matter.
I get shot a lot by Harlequins because I don't play any armies they have to respect for shooting. So it's really good into me.
See, this is my armor of contempt privilege coming through, because when those shuriken cannons shoot at me, I'm like, go away. What are you doing? Enough.
Whereas I'm playing GSC and I'm fighting for my life against shuriken.
Yeah.
Every single one of these boats is killing 45 points.
Yeah, you're stop.
Of note, Harlequins have been struggling to win events as of late, and I think that's because of number 2 army hunts them really, really well, which is Chaos Demons at a 59.4% win rate, 36 players, 2 event wins, 5 top 4s, and a 1.4 overrep. I think we've kind of talked to death what the problem with Demons is right now, because it's the same problem that is with the Chaos Suit faction.
Flamers.
Yeah, Flamers. They're way too cheap. I had an interesting discussion with someone this weekend that and I'm convinced that this is now the case, that GW intended to make them D3 plus 3 shots, not D6 plus 3 shots.
And then you have to use the strat to get them to 9 shots.
Exactly.
The strat that I played 4 games against Flamers before finding out existed when I read it, because they don't need it.
No, they
Yeah.
really don't.
Why would they bother? Except against you. I would use it against you, but against other things, you don't need it.
You really don't need it against JSC, man.
Nah, fuck you. You're gonna put a dude in cover and take 3-ups or some stupid nonsense. You're gonna pass more than you should. I'm not playing this game.
All right. Trailing them just behind is Imperial Knights, 21 players, 58.4% win rate, no event wins, and 4 top 4s for an over-up of 1.92. They're just really efficient.
Really good at going 3 and 2.
Yeah, they are really good at going 3 and 2 or 4 and 1, and they're really good at scoring points. Like, their average VP is one of the highest right now, and their average VP for their opponents is one of the lowest.
Yeah, when Knights win, it's not pretty.
No, it's really not. Like, Knights have a higher average points than in both Harlequins and Chaos Demons.
Yeah, Knights are pretty good. I don't know, man. I have absolutely no respect for Knights. I don't think I've lost to them yet this edition. I just refuse to acknowledge them as a faction until they start being played by good players. But
they have a horrible CSM matchup, so that's been pretty cruisy.
And their NIDS matchup was real bad, which is just and their GSC matchup isn't much better. So I don't know if I've just been on pretty privilege for a while.
Yeah, 100%. That's absolutely what's happening. By the way, it's the same reason that I think Flamer is I'm just most of the time.
Yeah, Flamers are fine. Armored Condemned can cover, right?
Terminators, what? It's fine. 3 unit shoot, kill 2, whatever.
Sitting next, we have Sisters at 22 players and a 56% win rate, 1 event win, 3 top 4s for a 1.38. They're just above that. They just need that slight adjustment. But I mean, it's also Sisters can vary wildly week to week, as we've been seeing. And then the last of the 2 factions that are sitting above 55% are the Chaos Super faction, which is Chaos Soup, which is almost entirely X plus Flamer stapled onto them, or Dogwalker lists. And the ones that are dragging the win rate down are the Dogwalker lists, and the Flamer Soup ones are pulling the win rate up.
But what about Dogwalker plus Abaddon plus Flamers, dude? It's the future.
We had one of those players this weekend, actually, and I was just like, why would you do this?
People gotta stop, man. Just enough. Dogwalker is so much worse. It makes me so angry every time it comes up, because it's
But why is it worse? Come on, we got time.
All right. So problem number 1 is definitely a problem of unlucky. But
Dogwalker specifically is Abaddon and 10 armor guards versus the standard 13 armor guards or 10 armor guards.
I think it's actually 11 armor guards with Abaddon.
Sure,
but
whatever.
The reason I think it's so much worse is now 4 for 4 against this army, at least once, some amount of armor explosion has wound capped Abaddon at least once, which, independent of the fact that you've chosen to make your army worse, makes Abaddon much worse. That even being an option is terrible. Secondly, I think if you're gonna do it, you might if you're gonna play Chaos Knights, right? You're committing to a thing. You might as well either just play 13 dogs or play 1 big and 10 small and get better mileage out of Blessing of the Dark Master, which is nuts. Why would you not want that on a big crazy model when you can do that? Get that Abaddon can run through walls. I understand. But it doesn't really contribute to your game plan in a meaningful way.
It also makes all your secondaries worse, which is just funny.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because if you're trying for
considerably worse,
Ruthless Tyranny, Abaddon can't be one of your objective holders. And
I have fed a fitting challenge unit to Abaddon before.
I was gonna say that's the huge one where someone's just like, "Yep, here you go."
And then after that, it's Craft World. Surprisingly enough, they seem to have rebounded a little bit on a mix of everything in terms of the factions that we're seeing. They're sitting at a 55.3% win rate, 23 players, 2 event wins, 3 top 4s, and a 1.32 over rep. So, again, like Sisters, just on the cusp. Very easy for them to be brought back in line with a couple small adjustments. I think I don't really know where you would touch them right now. because it's a mix of
just rule that Swift Strikes doesn't work with battle focus.
that would
I
affect a
think
couple of the
that
big
was
builds that
fine.
you're seeing, but you're also still seeing
Fuck
like
off.
Hail of Doom with a decent amount of success.
Yeah, I think Failure was fine. The Swift Strikes list be working at all is just dumb. I don't think that should exist.
I think you have PTSD. I think it's actually fine.
No, I don't think it is.
I think Swooping Hawk should go up another 3 points.
Yeah,
That's
sure.
probably
They should just hit
very
Hawks
true.
again. That's not Swift Strike's fault.
Hawks should probably not auto wound at all. Like that could go away.
Yeah.
All right. So bottom of the barrel, the ones that are kind of in trouble or maybe could use some help. Death Guard, 44.6% win rate, but they had one event win and 3 top 4s for an overrep of 2.33, which
Morty
ties them
T9.
with Harlequins.
Big Morty T9. Come on.
Big Morty T9.
Big Morty T12. It doesn't matter.
Give
It's not what
Disgusting
kills them.
Resilient a 5-up shrug against mortals.
That would be cool.
That would be cool. Morty 2-up save T9. Let's do it.
Yep. Then we have Drukhari at 43.5 with nothing. No top 4s, no event wins.
What?
Grey Knight.
Why'd you have to say it like that?
Because I know it hurts you, Anthony. That's why I did it. Grey
Drukhari with
Knights,
everything they deserve.
yeah. There was only 11 players. They had one of the lowest player counts.
My boys.
Grey Knights at 42.7. No meaningful stats again. Guard, I'm not even going to cover them. They're at 42.5, but their book is coming out at some point in the near future. So we're going to see changes for.
Probably.
Well, it depends. Some events will actually allow it with
We should
the
ignore
army
those
box.
ones.
We should, but they're going to allow it, and I'm going to have to go through and figure out whether they use the data slate or not.
I mean,
Because that's going to make a huge headache.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, dude.
Then we only have three real factions at the bottom of that. We have Space Marines as a whole with a 42.1% win rate, but they won 2 events. They had 5 top 4s, but they still only managed an over up of 0.62. So
How many of those were Blood Angels?
None, if I remember correctly.
So one of them was Ultramarines with Gulliman.
Oh, that's
no,
true.
it
I
wasn't
didn't know
Ultramarines
that.
with Gilliman. It was Ultramarines with Gilliman, 3 Redemptors, and an Astreus.
Absolute Chad, my hero.
King.
I don't understand how that's in any way better than just playing a Desire Hands, but good for you, lad.
And then the other Space Marine win was Adam Camilleri with Dark Angels.
Oh, right.
Where he went over to New Zealand and stole their ITC points, the few that they get.
Can't believe it.
Just said,
The absolute bandit, Adam. Damn it.
your entire country belongs to me and my Dark Angels.
I love you, Adam. And then bottom of the barrel, we have Admech at a 35.5% win rate, but only 7 players. And then we have Orcs, 21 players, 4% of the meta, and they had a 32.4% win rate.
What happened?
I don't know.
They're pretty good. Like
if I
what
just
was
look at the
that?
month, Orcs are at a 42% win rate. So something really weird happened this week.
I mean, like they also won the GW Invitational.
The Invitational.
Yeah, I know.
Without
But
that.
they're clearly not that bad. I know, but they're clearly capable of at least in competent hands beating some good armies.
Oh,
What
I will
the
add
orc
one
players
note.
are doing is not that.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair.
Alex Taus pointing out that he stole the points, but not the trophy. I was talking with Adam. He played his game 6 and then headed to the airport. He didn't even wait around for the awards.
What a champion.
Absolute madness.
Yes.
Look, man, I just came here for the rep.
Yeah.
He's got to lock in that best in factions Archangel since he isn't making LVO.
Sorry, there won't be any Dark Angels players in LVO.
I don't know. Maybe I'll.
Not when I'm done with them.
Anthony, how much would we have to crowdfund for you to play Dark Angels at LVO?
10 grand.
Cliff?
I've got the army for him too.
You know how that whole thing
I'll
about
play Ravenwing.
Oh no. Dark Angels. You gotta play all 3 wings.
Okay.
Oh.
And that's the stats for the week. It was a busy week, 13 events. Things are kind of all over the place. Things are very much still in flux. Everyone's going to ask. Votan had a 51.4% win rate and a 1 top 4 for an over of a 0.67. So they
Completely
clearly,
balanced.
yeah, they're perfectly balanced. Doesn't ignore the fact that no one of note was playing them, and most of the lists were kind of weird.
Francois.
Yeah.
No one of
No
note.
one of note. He said what he said.
How many
you,
players
Francois.
were there for Votan?
If I remember correctly, there were 15 players, so 5 more than last week, despite us having about 100 less players.
Of note, there was a team event in England this weekend where there were 2 Team England teams playing. I'm pretty sure both their Votan players went 5-0, like
They did.
absolutely dumpstering everybody in their
They
path.
definitely
Where's
did.
the picture of Vic with the giant war chest of Votan that he's carrying?
Yeah, Vic and Adam Lane just carrying a pile of Votan out of Element Games.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think Tom Layton played against Matt Robertson's Votan and put on his Twitter that he lost like 1,400 points of his army before he even fired a gun.
That's good. Army's fine, by the way, or bad depending on who you ask.
Yeah, yeah, you'll just clock out with the beam rolls, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Fucking Votan.
How
Honestly,
much for Anthony to play Custodes? Less than Dark Angels?
Same price.
if someone sets up a thing and 10 grand ends up in my possession, I'll play what wins a vote. I don't care.
Absolute terrible idea to put that on the internet. Because you're
too
gonna we will provide you a Warhound Titan if we have to. Right. I'm gonna do the plugs. And then we'll move on to our discussion and questions section. So, hi everybody, this is Stat Check. Thank you for being with us for the show so far. If you want to hear more of us, you can check us out at youtube.com/c/statcheck, where you can see all of our back episodes and also our bonus content. There will be more bonus content coming out a week on Friday, which will be our Enter the Matrix episode with Team England's Josh Roberts. You should definitely check that out. I think it's one of Anthony's finer pieces of work, and I've definitely listened to it. But it's like 100 minutes of listening to one of the OG 40k players in Josh Roberts talk about being the captain of Team England, which is, I don't know if you've heard, quite a good team generally. Maybe not last year, but we ignore that. Otherwise, you can find us live here every Tuesday at 11 p.m. GMT and whatever other times that converts to. I don't know. Use Google.
6 p.m. EST, 5 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Mountain, 3 p.m. Pacific.
Sometime in Hawaii. Stop validating the people that aren't Googling it. Yeah, we're here live every week. If you want to interact with the show, it's the best way to do it. If you'd like to support the show, you can check us out at patreon.com/statcheck, where for a couple of dollars a month, you can get access to our Discord and also all of our bonus content. It's a really great place to be. We've got a couple hundred people in there now, and it is one of the better communities I've found on the internet so far. And that's not just because I'm part of it, but it is because I'm part of it. You should listen to me talk about the random YouTube videos I've been watching. Yeah, that's all I got. Thank you guys for being with us, and we're now going to move on with the rest of the show. And yeah. Big ups. Thanks, guys. Oh, like, comment, subscribe, put a comment down there. It's a massive help. If you do nothing else, leave a comment for us. We do our best to respond to all of them, and they make our day a little bit better when I'm sat at work and I get a notification ping up, and it gives me a second to read something that's not spreadsheets.
Yeah. I've had to stare at spreadsheets this week. I don't like it.
Spreadsheets are like, they circle back around. Like, they're so useful, and then you get so involved in them. What?
Circle back.
I don't know what you mean.
I just put a pin in that. We'll come back to it later.
Can we kick him? He's not a permanent member, right?
No, he's unfortunately as much part of the fucking furniture as we are, so we can't do anything.
He's not part of the show. He's part of the network. We can just remove him. Like, it's legal, right?
I don't know. He holds a lot of the keys. I feel like he could just also kick us.
Look, that's fair. Anyway, yeah, spreadsheets will do that thing where like they're really, really useful until you hit a saturation point, and then they drop off a cliff, and it's so evil.
Yeah, it's like a pairing matrix.
Okay, now you're just making weird analogies that only like 3 people will get. Yeah, let's table this for now, and we'll pivot back. Fuck's sake, I hate you all.
Yep.
40k. Let's talk about Warhammer. That, the game we play. How do you feel about it right now?
Great. I'm very biased because my army has 6 viable sub factions, so I have lots of stuff to try still for an army I've been playing a lot of since it came out.
Yeah, man. That Alpha Legion exposure opponent's Land Fortress build, I'm telling you.
That shit is funny. Like, I don't know if it's amazing, but it's definitely funny.
How many decimators does it take to kill a Land Fortress in one go?
Probably all 3, but even then you might not get there.
But I'm just considering the hilarity of killing a Land Fortress without it getting to do anything about it, and then exploding it on your opponent's lines turn 1. And that makes me kind of happy.
Not for nothing, if I'm the Votann player, I'm probably like, I'm playing Alpha Legion, this can go on the line, and then finding out very quickly.
I think that would be hilarious, and I want someone to do that and tell me about it.
Yeah, that would be quite funny.
I don't even think 3 decimators do it because they lost all of their shenanigans.
Well, they have exploding 6s, right? You can press
yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Like, it can get out of hand, but like, it probably won't. You know,
it's like 24 shots, 16 hits, 15 wounds.
That's actually quite a few wounds.
And then you got exploding 6s on top of that. Like, it probably kills a Land Fortress like more than on average.
Fair enough.
I'm not saying I'm going to go and buy 3 decimators, but
I can have free show up to Mythicos if you want to play that. But you have to do it as Alpha Legion or it doesn't count.
Yeah, it would have to be all exploding, obviously. Like, that goes without saying.
Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah, I think things are in a good spot. Like, all the armies I play are decent to good. Like, everything, like, the meta is pretty diverse. I'm not like, outside of like Tau and Votann specifically, and in the eventual future Guard, I'm not like super sad when I pair into basically anything. I'm not like, oh, this is going to be shit to play against, even, you know, like opponent agnostic, basically.
Yeah, it's just good Tau players and anybody with a brainstem and Votann.
Yeah. And like, I think Guard is going to fall into anybody with a brainstem pretty quick now that I've done some more exploring of lists.
That's good. We'll talk about that in a bit.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit. It doesn't have to be right this second, but like, yeah, the meta is good and threatened by a thing that might be nonsense again, which is annoying. But we'll see how that goes, and maybe it'll shake out. Maybe it'll be fine. Maybe it won't. I think that generally the best way to play 40k right now is as a combined arms army, and I think the game is better off when the game is in that state.
Yeah, that all seems fairly agreeable. What about yourself, Jeremy?
I'm pretty much in the same boat. Like, I mean, this weekend was a really good opportunity to see kind of where the local meta is at, but we also had a lot of out-of-towners coming in, so it was a really nice kind of snapshot of where the meta, where players are at, where the game's at overall. Our top, I can't remember what was in the top 10, but it was a very diverse list. It wasn't like just one faction at the top. You had Votann up there. You had the Tzeentch, Thousand Suns, Chaos Demons combo up there. Guard, the old book was up there. The only really army that wasn't really present at my GT was Tau, because we had one Tau player and it was his first GT. So he also paired into the Votann round 1.
I hear that's not good for your win, right?
No, not especially not when you line both of your Riptides up and lose them to one heavy conversion beamer. And then repeat
That's some really bad saves.
Oh, I was watching it. I didn't believe it. If I hadn't witnessed it, I wouldn't have believed it. It was 4 hits, 3 wounds on each, 3 failed saves on both. And both of them had already taken 2 mortal wounds in the previous turn shooting at that land fortress.
Warhammer's a fun and balanced game.
Very.
That's not Warhammer's fault, right? Like, the Warhammer didn't do anything wrong in that story.
It allowed you to shoot 2 units at once with the same gun.
Yeah, I guess fair enough, but...
And then the Tau player proceeded to bring his Sunshark bombers back on the table again in a perfect line in front of the same land fortress.
I mean, the fact that the land fortress is still alive in this situation, I don't enjoy, but...
He lost 1 land fortress all tournament. And it was to T-Sun's mortal wound phase, psychic.
That's
No one else
good.
was able to shoot or punch it to death.
That's good.
Yeah, it was a problem.
Yeah, I don't like Warhammer very much right now. I feel like I'm weird for saying that, but none of the armies I play right now feel super fun or rewarding to play or like simple. I'm kind of jumping through a lot of hoops, is why I'm picking up the Thousand Suns list, because I don't know, I've kind of felt this way since like the first time Nids got nerfed, which no fucking big privilege. The first time when they were like Pyrovores to 40, I was like, I don't like this game no more, and I've not really recovered it since. Which
Do you want your army to be simple?
a little bit, yeah. I want my army to be like on the table. I want to be making decisions, not be making my army make me make decisions. I don't know if I want to, if there's a better way to phrase that.
I don't
I want
like.
the play pattern to be simple so that I can find ways to extend it rather than having it have a basic, complicated play pattern.
Yeah, I think you and I are on the same page for that, right? Like that's why we don't play Craft World Eldar, because every single game is like fucking enter the
No,
mine
I play
matrix.
GSC. I'm willing to put myself through it if it will help me win games.
Yeah,
But
sure.
I don't
But
But
want
you'd
like
rather
why-
not be
baseline
in that kind of
enjoy.
position.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
it's not plan one, right? Like plan
Yeah, exactly.
plan one in an ideal world with that GSC army is drop turn table cunts and then figure it out later. Like the plan 2, 3, 4, and 5 are very complex, but plan one is simple.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's why I don't know. I feel like I gravitated towards the Crusher list and then the just put Harpies on the board and hope for the best list for Tyranids for a while, because when Plan A is just 2 hour lunch break, I enjoy that.
I fucked up not playing Crusher. It's one of my great regrets in the game. I don't have a lot. That's one of them.
Crusher, I regret not playing Crusher sooner, but I also didn't play a lot of events during like the first part of Crusher being legal.
Right.
So I'm not too upset about that, and I was excited for the GSC book, so I'll chalk up one of the events to that.
Yeah, that's fair.
So yeah, I don't know. I'm not massively in love with 40k right now. Like I'm in love with everything that surrounds it, but actually playing 40k right now, I'm kind of broadly ambivalent. Playing the big demons list last weekend was good fun. It kind of reminded me of Crusher in a really, really sad way as I watched Be'lakor like eat shit to heavy stubbers.
Yeah, I really don't like playing demons. I learned. I tried really hard to like demons, and I just can't do it. I don't know. You would think the army would be right up my alley, and it just doesn't do it, man.
Yeah, I really enjoy like exactly one of the greater demons being on the board, and then the other two, I'm just kind of like, I wish you were anything playable that wasn't flamers.
Yeah.
It's like, go.
It was kind of what I expected when I went to play them, in that like almost nothing in the army is particularly interesting to me from a play pattern perspective. It's just like, what? It's so easy to die to nothing in that army. It's so frustrating. Like the second someone has an auto wound mechanic, your big demons are like paper. You're like, cool.
Yeah, Be'lakor is incredibly resilient until he's not.
Yeah, and then he's very suddenly not.
The Bloodthirster feels incredible every time you play against an army that doesn't do psychic damage. Is basically how I felt. Or like will turn, or that can't turn one charge you. The Lord of Change felt terrible. I did not like that model at all.
I liked it when I played
Flamers are
against
nuts.
I liked it when I played against it. I didn't love it using it.
So I have one question for you about that. How the fuck was he doing that much damage to your Noise Marines? Like you were saying, he was like one-shotting 2 Noise Marine squads a turn. I was
no. It was he killed 2 Noise Marine squads like in 2 turns, and then after that he blasted my Terminators, and then he died.
Yeah, as I'm out there like, I killed like four intercessors this turn. Really good use of my 300-point model.
No, it was just like
super weird.
Yeah, he like super smited, gatewayed, bolted, like all of them went off, and it was just like, that's a dead Noise Marine squad.
Yeah, I guess I just didn't find it super invisible. Master Mutator did not feel very good either.
I really liked that. Again, it's like it's good to gate a Terminator unit, hit a whole bunch of characters, and then Master Mutator goes off.
Yeah, I get that. It's like it's a bunch of splash damage. Like it comes up, but I felt like a lot of the time I killed the thing I was putting mortal wounds on anyway. I was just softening them up with Lord of Change, so I suppose it's just different plays and styles. And I never really got a good gateway off. Like I never got more than 2 units with it. So
yeah,
it's hard. Just again not really playing against. You're not playing against Death Ball armies quite so much. No, I definitely enjoy all of the parts of demons I really like, and then the army I hate. That is kind of how I felt.
Yeah, it just didn't. I don't know. I really was expecting it to be an army I enjoyed and just didn't like it at all.
It just
I
doesn't
think
feel
I want
cohesive.
Yeah, I think I want my big expensive units to have some ability to shoot. I think that's what I've broken down as I've played more and more. I'm okay with like pure melee on like my fast infantry units. Like I'm all about it. Those dudes don't need guns. But if I'm taking a unit that's basically more than 180 points, I want it to shoot at least a little. No, that's probably not the right threshold. Probably around the 300 line, I need it to shoot at least a bit.
Yeah,
'Cause
I'm
those,
okay with psychic damage if it's like good psychic damage.
the Maliceptor
Uh,
was fine, right?
yeah, I'm just kind of like thinking like Hive Tyrant. I would be like, I'm fine with it just being a smite and damage platform.
Yeah. Well, like the
Uh,
big possessed units that I've been running in Bile, right, have been totally fine. Like they're if I especially if I was playing a legion, like if I wanted to play a legion where they do damage and I just played word bearers, they would do great damage. They would be fine. But like anywhere past that price point, I need you to have some guns.
That's fair. And that's why Warriors were so rewarding to play. I'm not going to say fun to play, but rewarding to play. Warriors just kind of did everything, and it was mental.
Yeah. Well, that's NIDS, right? NIDS do everything better than most armies
Yeah,
right now.
exactly. Well, clearly not, if they're tanking in the win rate right now. But
I just think that's because you have to have your head on your shoulders to play them now. Also, like no one played them this weekend. If we have a weekend where you and Gaylord pick up Kraken, I'm sure their win rate will be fine.
Yeah, but that's not happening anytime soon. That matchup into Thousand Suns is real bad, by the way.
I believe that. Yeah, is it that bad?
Into Thousand Sons of Flamers, yeah, it's really bad.
Why?
You just get stuck on them. Like the Tyrant can't commit to a big squad of Scarabs anymore because it just like kills 2 less than it used to. And then you get stuck in combat with them. Flamers murder Raveners like for breakfast and
Yeah, but
are
they
faster
die
than
like
them.
flies when you hit them.
Yeah, but
You
you
gotta be able to
gotta
hit
hit
them.
them.
Yeah, but you have Paroxysm to make it in, and then your psychic damage into them. Like they have a terrible time trying to deny Tyranid psychic phase stuff.
I don't know. It just doesn't feel good. Like it, and their secondaries are really good into you because Wrath of Magnus becomes an option, and I don't know. I didn't like it when I played it.
Well,
It just felt awkward. Is the
also
best way I
Spore
can
Mines have
describe
a
it?
fucking field day with those lads.
Spore
Yeah,
mines
spore
do
mines.
have a
Spore
field
mines are
day
great.
there.
Spore mines are great.
Yeah.
I do love a spore mine.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's just feel. I don't know. It's really hard to be objective on Tyranids. I'll segue into this. Do you ever find that it's really difficult to like, even when an army is still really good after it's been nerfed, to play it because you're just kind of like, I remember what this was like, and things that I feel like should be easy, like my heuristics are all off with it now. And I just struggle with like damage breakpoints, or I expect my unit to do a little more than it does, or live a little longer than it does, or I expect to have a little more stuff. I found that
Yeah.
a lot with nerfed armies.
I
I
experienced
didn't
that
have.
with
Oh, go ahead, Jeremy.
I experienced that with Custodes. Like because I played them at launch, played them for another 4 or 5 months after that through a couple rounds of nerfs, and it was only when I picked them back up to write a list for someone about a month ago that I was like, this doesn't feel right. They're still very strong. They're winning events. They have they're sitting at like a 50 to 52% win rate most weeks, but they don't feel right anymore.
Yeah, that's
Even though
definitely how I feel
they're
with
perfectly
Nids.
fine.
I played a game with Leviathan on stream last weekend, and it was like the second my zone topes were getting wounded on 3s, I was just like, I'm fucking out.
It's not. I don't know. It depends on the army, right? Like I was fine playing Drukhari through all the various variations, but that was such a stale meta, and there was not new threats introduced at the time that Drukhari stayed comparatively better than most other armies. Like their relative position didn't change even if the army itself was nerfed.
You were kind of Jakari were getting like the hand job in the back alley at the same time, like they were getting a nerf and a buff at the same time, kind of thing.
Not usually. That only happened once, and people bring that up a lot. Like we only, as Drukhari, we only ever got nerfed and buffed once. Everything else was flat nerfs, and it happened like 5 times. But they were smaller nerfs than often what we see now. So like Drukhari was mostly fine most of the way through, right? And then again, there was nothing else that really existed to challenge them. Like the biggest nerf that's happened to Drukhari since they were released was the release of the Tau Codex, followed by the Night Books. Like if they had just done that faster, that would have been a shorter Drukhari meta.
Yeah, that
like,
definitely was a meta where it felt like, where the fuck is the next codex?
dude, it was forever. It was forever that we were playing under that. And then like a little bit of that is that when orcs were good was right when Drukari got the Coven buff, was like right after that. So it was easy. Like Thick City beat the brakes off orcs, so there was no like that wasn't hard. Similarly, Custodes had a really hard time into Thick City, in my experience. So like Drukari's weird for that, right? A good example of that, though, that I definitely can get with you on, and this is going to sound weird because they're currently doing really well, is Light. Light is really good, but it feels like shit to play because
it's a shell of what it used to be.
You don't have anything. You don't have a chapter tactic. You don't have a mono mechanic. You got one of your units that used to be really good when I first started them is now quite shit. Like, you're just a man with dudes in boats that's everywhere for about 3 turns, and then you're gone. Like, and it doesn't matter. You'll still win, but winning that way over and over and over again is like, oh, fucking hell. It's exhausting. It sucks.
Yeah, that's how I feel about GSC. It's like you're working so hard for the thing that you can kind of see it, like understand how the win. If there was like a little more, you could see how this would be really easy, and you know that it's not.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times like Emperor's Children feel that way because you don't have a lot of assets because you're still power armor bodies. So like I'm shooting and I'm doing a fight phase trickery and like everything is going pretty well. I'm in the driver's seat and I'm in control and things are fine, but also like there's a lot of room for this to get like slightly sketchy very easily.
Yeah, power armor armies always feel like you're one bad turn of saves away from just falling apart. Even when you're not really, it's just like that unit just loses 2 more models than it should, and your Blastmaster's gone, or it sucks.
Well, that game, I think I was playing next to you when I played the dude that was playing Dogwalker plus like some other stuff, and he shot me with the Executioners, and I rolled 4 1s to save on all the 4 Terminators in cover, and I was like, what? Come on, that's not real. That's not a thing that happens. What the fuck? And I had like, because of field note pains and stuff, like only 2 died, but still, like, it was like, hey.
Could you not do that to me right now?
Yeah,
I could really do with not losing 4 Terminators to a Helverin.
Yeah, to 1. Yeah, it's weird. Like CSM's also not really been in a position to get nerfed yet. So like I think Abaddon probably deserves a look, right? But like I don't think broad strokes, a lot of the stuff that's happening in CSM is like OP, and it so like
Abaddon and Noise Marines are probably the 2 that I would point out as needing something.
I think Noise Marine.
I think it's small adjustments. I don't think that they.
Yeah, I don't think Noise Marine significant.
Like big 20 points on Abaddon and like make Blastmasters 36 inches.
That's what I was just gonna say. Shorter range on the Blastmasters and like 20 or 25 points on Abaddon. I think you're fine.
Because I think you could probably also justify hitting Bile to make it less completely oppressive to melee.
Yeah,
and giving it something else instead. But
I definitely would prefer, like, the only thing that's felt really out of band with Emperor's Children has been specifically on UKTC terrain, if I'm honest. When I play on other terrain types, like the Emperor's Children shooting is good, but it's not like as exaggerated. And I really like the UKTC terrain in general, but that's like one area where like that thing feels good. And that, like, if anything, honestly, that's like a success of that terrain, that like my shooting and like I get rewarded for being a combined arms army, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's like the one time where I was like, boy, this feels wrong. I'm just shooting like all the way downfield and just blowing dudes off objectives. That doesn't seem like a thing that a troop carried weapon should do, especially because I can't mount it on any of my vehicles. But yeah. Yeah, it's the only shooting in all of CSM too, right? So
hey, Decimators. Dude, I have to respect Decimators now. It's in my contract. Like,
okay.
It says it here, and this thinks Decimators are good.
That's true. Yeah, it's on the bottom part of your brand description. But yeah, what Nick just said in chat, this is something that happened to me after I guess with picking up Drukari. When I went from playing Blood Angels to Drukari, and I started playing a much more dynamic army, I very much feel this now. Like when I go back to playing Blood Angels, they're really good. They're extremely good at scoring. They're very strong. Like, you don't bounce when you hit things. It's not really a thing that happens in Blood Angels. And I can play them for about one event before I'm like, the entire time. So yeah, that's a thing that's happened. I don't know when, but that happened.
I think I weirdly enjoy playing single phase armies in the sense of working around limitations is really interesting. But yeah,
fair.
it's kind of it's not a permanent thing. Like I could play an all melee army for a few events and not feel too bad about it. But I don't know if how much of that is just that I am more than willing to subject myself to playing whatever the fuck I need to in 40k, as long as it's not orcs.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't. Yeah, I don't share that, especially with the move to teams. There's so many players in the US that like I don't have to play things I don't want to, especially for teams.
Yeah, that's fair. Right, let's do a different question. Let's talk GW terrain then, since that was the second thing we were talking about. As I'm sure you might have heard, I'm going to an event in the US, which means I'm going to be playing on GW terrain for basically the first time. I've played one TTS game on GW terrain, which was really bad. I was playing 16 Raven Guard Eradicators into Bloody Rose Sisters. It did not go well. So yeah, talk to me about GW terrain. What is it like?
So let's do this way. Why don't we do it? So I want you to explain to me what you're concerned about and what you think you're taking. Because if I know those two things, I can give you much better advice as opposed to just being like, this is some shit about GW terrain.
All right. So my immediate high level concern is that fast shooting just kind of gets to you on those boards, and there's very little you can do to stop them just getting onto your base plate. So the GW terrain works with the squares of terrain. Fast shooting can get around the side of you super easily, and anything tall can't stand on it. So like high turret doesn't sound super fun into anything that can turn off bodyguard depending on how that's getting ruled, or like into anything that can get behind you. Greater demons seem like they're fucking trolling. So do planes, honestly, but I'm like Sunsharks are cheap enough and you get Kallion, so it doesn't matter. So like harpies feel awful. There's just a lot of stuff that doesn't feel great, and you don't have that. You don't get a safe place to really leave anything on these boards, is what it feels like. So like in a lot of terrain sets like UKTC and WTC, which are the two ones that I play on the most, you've almost always got like an enclosed backfield ruin that's probably on or near an objective where you can stage like a squad of biovores or a squad of 10 cultists or whatever, and you can be reasonably confident that unless something goes like hog wild for it or comes in from reserve in a really weird place, it's probably going to be fine. There's none of that on UKTC. You don't have any or none of that on GW. There's nowhere you can just kind of be safe. And then we've got the fact that there's no dense terrain on the board, which like you can use it in your deployment zone a little bit if you want to sit kind of out of the way. And that seems sketch. And also the sightline down the middle looks kind of awkward in terms of like
it's scuffed. It's not good.
Yeah, like there's definitely a sightline that exists there for some units, but also it completely disappears the second you walk onto it. So it's not a sightline you can rely on into anything that resembles a fast shooting unit, which is basically everything that's good right now. Like you're not going to be able to hide from a land fortress or a squad of crisis suits by hiding behind that terrain because that terrain is soft and malleable and very, very disappears.
So, from my grand experience playing on GW and having played UKTC now, you are more worried than you need to be. You are rather safe in your deployment zone. In fact, I generally feel safer in my deployment zone on GW than on any of the other boards that I've played on. It's pretty hard to get shot in your deployment zone with how the distances normally work out.
So like we've got this one here up. So I'm assuming this is the setup for like the hammer and anvil and the diagonal deployments, right?
Yeah, and corners.
Yeah. So so the bottom left ruined here. I don't know if anybody's got a mouse pointer they can put over that one. Because I can't.
Probably Carrie can because he's sharing his screen. Jeremy.
Yeah, down. Yeah, that one there. It looks like the angle on this is really scuffed in any diagonal deployment, where anything you try to put inside that extends basically past there is just going to get pushed angles on. Like I feel like I can't rely on this, especially in anything with like redeploys and pre-game moves.
So if you're just not on the plate, you're not getting shot. Like it's just not happening.
See, it just feels weird to say that because
it's true. Like I mean, as an example, the last time I played on GW terrain was at Salt City. I was running my Raven Wing, fast shooty army. I would struggle to get angles on people when they were sitting back here.
Okay, fair enough. It just doesn't seem like that would be how it would line up from the angles. I'm just imagining like pushing so that like that top forest in the top middle.
Yep.
Like a crisis unit deploying there, redeploying, and then popping the 18-inch advance, jumping onto the top left big plate, having angles down into me. Like if you can get, especially if you can get on top of the ruin.
It's not as much movement as you think it is, and on corners deployments, you'll have stuff there that if they do that, that crisis unit is now dead.
Yeah, that's fair. But that, like I said, I've not set this up and actually really played about with it as much as I probably need to.
Right.
It just kind of feels really, really, really easy to chase angles on.
The kings of GW terrain typically are fastest king always, right? Because that's just how 40k works.
Warhammer, yeah.
But melee armies are good, assuming you can gap jump through the things. So anything jump pack movement or in that zip code, like anything like 10 plus inches of movement is usually quite strong on these.
Sisters, possessed.
Yeah, things that tend to struggle are things like Death Guard, where they're like, I'm going to walk slowly towards you. Because they have like an exposed turn between ruins, which is where shit gets real bad. Fast shooting can jump up and touch the red ruins in the middle, but it's very rarely going to like coast to coast all the way to your plate. And your plate is like, it's not quite accurately depicted here for how the terrain's going to work at Mythos. The U is pretty deep. Like most of that is going to be pretty closed up. So it's not like all the way back and it's not like all the way forward, but like it's pretty substantial. So you'll be able to park inside that and be just invisible. Like anything that goes in there is just not getting seen, like non-negotiably not getting seen. So with the playing on the GW terrain, but using the WTC engagement rules means that you'll be unshootable a lot of the time, but you definitely won't be unchargeable ever, right? Past like physical screening.
Yeah, which is a good thing. Like that's all positive. I don't think anybody has issues with that.
No, that's all insane. That's all good things, but that's things you need to be aware of in list building, right? So like when you're looking at bringing Thousand Suns and Flamers, which is normally a very powerful army, on this specific.
I have no idea if I'm planning on taking that to Mythicos.
That was more of like that was a generalist thing. Like if you were planning to do that, it can get a lot worse in this layout because yes, your Flamers will shoot, but they will be very much so at risk every single time they do it. And there's a whole lot of places to dive Flamers without getting overwatched in this terrain.
Yeah, that was the big deal. It's just not a lot of physical pieces of terrain. So the sidelines become open by virtue of once you're touching one piece of terrain, you're ignoring functionally 1/6 of what's on the board. Whereas in something like UKTC and WC, there's like 10, 15 pieces. So there's a lot more active pieces of terrain breaking up sightlines. Yeah. So it does feel like the mid ground on these. So I'm just looking at this from the perspective of a mission like anything that has a central objective where you're encouraged to get it. So something like Death and Zeal or Conversion, or something like Data Strike, especially where you've just got to play in the middle.
Dude, folks are dying on middle mission. Like whoever you put in the middle better be durable as fuck or expected to be dead early.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's the game. Like you're just it's like Stranglehold didn't leave, or you're just like, I'm not doing that, right? Like Harlequin's just like, I'm not playing that game. I'm not doing this shit.
The middle does not exist. I am going.
Yeah, you just launch to the corners and you vibe. But like you have options, whereas like, and it, GW terrain has its upsides and its downsides, right? There are definitely a degree of like meta enforcement by virtue of the terrain setup, but what you're talking about is basically only achievable by one crisis unit that will immediately die the following turn.
Yeah, that's fair. But I will continually like tower one of like the three armies I respect. So when you come into list building, it's like, how do I deal with Votan? How do I deal with Chaos Space Marines? How do I go with Tau right now? Or kind of how I'm approaching it. And it's like, well, I don't know. It seems really sketchy into Tau. Votan seems like they're just going to shoot me off the middle and I don't kill them. and Chaos Space Marines are going to jump, tank yourself in the middle, and there's cover everywhere.
One list that works really well for this is what John played at Chicago. The double Tyrant Guard, double Tyrant Kraken build is real good on this terrain. Once you have double Tyrant Guard, you can stand wherever you please with your Tyrants. Like you being taller than the runes doesn't mean shit. Because your Tyrants your Tyrant Guard are not dying. So you have a lot more options, like something like that, and then you can pump out obviously Spore Mines to your Glee. Outside of the fact that they're not tall, so big demons and knights tend to get fucked. These runes are general in what?
Aircraft.
Oh yeah, fuck them too. These runes are generally much safer than any of the layouts you normally see, like WTC or UKTC. Once you're in your happy you're good. Like everything's okay. There's no windows, no one's dying. Like the people in there are safe. You just got to get to that.
I played 8th edition. I know what a magic box is. You're fine.
Same idea. Like not literally, but close. It definitely takes some getting used to, but I would lean towards playing a more melee focused thing.
From what you're saying, what I'm leaning towards wanting to play is a fast shooting army or a fast combat army that has enough shooting to make people have to respect it and stay out of direct line of sight, which makes me like lean away from something like I don't want to play demons on this. Even like if I wanted to go super like combat super shooting heavy on the demons, I'm not massively interested in playing a gunline army. There's definitely a lot of appeal behind just being like, I'm going to coin flip at you. But if you can't really get your opponent, and also they're going to get to see you if you try to stand in the middle, and you're going to have to trade assets at a rate that you're not going to love.
Yeah, you're not even coin flipping on GW terrain with gunline. Gunlines are actively not good on GW terrain.
Yeah, which is an advantage. I don't dislike that. That board just looks bad.
That's a shit board. I don't know. Like I haven't played on this yet, so I'm hesitant to call it like turbo bad, but it seems like it's going to be a nightmare, and I'm glad we're not using that.
Okay, that's so we are just using layout 2 then?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Day 1 will actually be a little bit of layout 1, but with the ruins rotated appropriately, and with it'll have the middle. It'll look like this, just with the ruins moved. So it'll actually be more like layout 2 with the ruins turned.
Okay, so similar to what was done at Salt City, where we basically
it's just going to be this layout, just with the ruins facing each other, like on Dawn. If assuming there's Dawn missions, that's what Dawn will look like.
Okay,
so.
Yeah, people in chat were asking about the new layout, and so I brought this up.
Oh yeah, chat. I put myself in full screen. I haven't read in chat in a fucking in a while. Yeah, I don't know. It feels again like the other thing you need to be able to dig your opponent out of ruins if you want to play 100%. A proactive game. You could either play it feels like you can either play a super defensive game where you just kind of play a list that scores your second trade super reliably. So something like, you take banners almost always. You play a super defensive game. You contest the middle where you have to make sure.
You probably could play Annihilator.
I don't own Annihilator, and I'm not going to be in any way practiced on it.
I can absolutely have Annihilator show up if you wanted to play Annihilator.
I don't think I want to. Like, I like the idea of it, but it doesn't seem super fun in this context. I don't want to be adjusting to a new list and a new terrain format at the same time.
Yeah, we can also play on it the night before with whatever you do decide you want to play.
Yeah, I get that. Like, that's probably going to happen anyway, because otherwise people will be mad at us for not streaming a game. But
yeah.
So you could either go for like a super proactive. So I'm thinking like, if I wanted to play GSC on this, you could play a super defensive GSC list. You put 30 bikes inside those fucking ruins and say, come at me, I'm scoring brutes from without trying, and I'll ambush you on turn 2. And like, that's probably fine. You fucking excavate on these boards seems hilarious. So
it's real good.
Is definitely.
You turn off your biggest fear, which is getting alphaed by Tau as well, by virtue of how you're deploying.
Yeah, you're playing GSC, you don't get alphaed. GSC cannot be alpha. It's the only fun thing about playing that faction in like a making your opponent miserable sense is that your opponent just looks at you and goes, "Oh, I just don't get to do a turn 1 a decent percentage of the time," and that is hands down the most fun thing about playing the faction. I'm also just thinking like pre-game moving bikes behind the big L's. So like if you're sort of thinking about this diagonal, you pre-game move, you don't get the full L's in it, but you can pre-game move like into a line behind it where you can push around it on the future turn. Seems fine. But also GSC or Super Sketch, and also I'm going to be playing them on what I'm assuming is going to be not a lot of sleep and a lot of other substances, which seems sketch.
We'll make sure you get a decent amount of sleep. I
don't want that. Let's not do that.
Okay.
So like GSC are definitely an option. It's I could chase that best of action as well. I'm not that far off it right now.
I was gonna say with another decent score, and if you take them to LVO, that's kind of it, right? They're probably great on player plays.
Yeah, probably. So the GSC and then like a Kraken Nids list that goes. I kind of like the idea of playing a Kraken Nids list that goes super heavy into the smites. We built this at Coventry,
Yeah,
if you recall,
yeah,
like
we
the one
talked about
that's
that.
like Maliceptor triple zoanthropes. It's different to the triple turret list, but the Maliceptor is good at clearing behind a ruin where you don't want to commit stuff to it. Because like if you push a Maliceptor like right up behind one of these brown ruins and then smite the stuff that's on the other side of it, and then overrun whatever you send to the other one back, they then have to commit to the Maliceptor, and then
You're gonna want
collapse on that. Like that seems
some
doable.
amount of warrior, Ravener, something.
Yeah, you're either playing like Kraken 50, like 10 to 15 Raveners, or you're playing like Leviathan 9 Warriors and some other infantry combat unit.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have to contest objectives, and you have to have stuff that you can leave on an objective. Like if you commit a tyrant and overrun a tyrant back, you can't leave it on an objective unless you're fucking.
Well, the big thing is going to be able to be breaching ruins, right? Like you still need the breachable keyword to benefit from the WTC rule, right? Like it doesn't do anything if you're a monster.
Yeah, there's actually a decent amount of tyrant goes up on boards like this.
Sure.
The tyrant can just go above the unit that you're charging.
Yeah, but then you're looking at like a 7-inch minimum. Like,
well, no, because if they're not stood right up against the wall, you can place above them and then charge in, right?
What?
Well, there's a decent degree of the ruin floor above them on most of these boards, right?
Yeah, there's a ruin floor above them, but it's only like 3 or 4 inches above them. Like you're going to charge to that.
Yeah, but if they're you can like advance to that position from stage positions with Tyrant Guard as well.
What am I missing? You can't land on the roof
if they're not directly above it, under it, you can.
Right? Oh, you're saying if they're not within an inch of the roof, then you can. Oh, yeah, sure. The roof goes on top of it airways, though.
Yeah, like, I'm not saying it's always possible, but if your opponent is trying to stay out of threat ranges of something like Raveners, you can definitely still get a turn into a lot of those situations.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, the lack of dense makes me want to play shooting a lot more than I think I need to, because you're just not dealing with -1 to hits a lot.
The dense it's not that big of like you're just not shooting a lot.
Yeah, I know, I get that, but I'm like fast shooting just seems good. Like coming from the WTC boards where I basically just assumed that at all times my warriors are -1 to hit. Coming into a situation where they're not that seems nice. It just I don't know how it stacks up.
Yeah, you just won't like what I'm saying is like instead of you being like I'll put it to you this way. I was amazed at how often I got to roll the dice of my guns when I started to play not GW. I was like, holy shit, I get to use these. This is crazy. And people be like, yeah, it's at a -1. I'll be like, I don't give a shit. I get to use them at all. Hell yeah.
Like you're playing Emperor's Children as well, so like who cares?
Well, no, I mean I was playing Warriors at the time, right? But like in general, like on GW, when you like just getting to shoot is like fucking yes.
Or you're playing time.
Even then, it's a little touch and go, right? Like the one crisis unit will get to zip around, but if you're playing against like a more defensively minded opponent that can score from their deployment zone or score by sending out garbage, it can be hard.
And that's where I'm on the like it's bad because you're not scoring from your deployment zone. You're having to play aggressively.
Well, you do it the other way, right? But as Nids, you have the tools to go out and do things, right? You don't need to score from your deployment zone.
Yeah. No, it's super interesting. It's definitely a format I'll have to have a think about, because like a lot of what you said lines up with what I was thinking, but just not in terms of how. Like the deployment zone being a little safer than I seem to think it is makes sense, but it also
you're not getting alpha on GW terrain. Like that's not a thing that happens.
I'll need to set it up and have a look at it. I'll probably just set it up and mark it out on my board. And try and figure it out from there.
Right.
No, it's super interesting. Right. Should we do some questions?
Probably.
We had to make a new show questions discussion bit because people kept reading our show questions and being like, why don't we just answer them ourselves? So Anthony got mad at them eventually. But if that doesn't tell you there's great engagement in our Discord, I don't know what will.
Just put them in a different channel. And go over
exactly. Could Guard and Custodes Imperium Suplex be okay with a new Guard Codex?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see why not. Seems okay.
It could be okay. Custodes stand in places. It's worse than just playing guard. I don't know that it's worse than just playing custodes.
We'll talk more. We'll talk guard more next week when Nathan's back, because Nathan's been building and playing them a little bit. So
Yeah.
we're gonna move on from them this week just because of time. What do you think of the GW finals format with the double elimination knockout? It's a good format. Double elimination is always a good way to do things.
Jeremy, you're muted.
Yeah, I just realized that. As a spectator sport, it's nice. It's interesting. Because if you're following one particular person, you're guaranteed to see at least 2 games from them.
And maybe as many as 7.
Maybe.
Dark meat or white meat for your turkey?
Dark meat.
Usually white.
White, but turkey's only a Christmas thing here.
Hmm.
Favorite leftovers meal? None. I'm not a big leftovers guy.
Like the turkey mashed potato gravy sandwich situation is usually pretty good.
Fair. Is Innes aware of green bean casserole? No, but I can kind of put the picture together of what that would be.
I'm not gonna make him aware either, so that'll be fine.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Anthony's seen what my diet looks like. We'll be fine.
Yeah.
How many Wraiths and Destroyers or Wraiths in this Sneak to Mythicals? Probably none, but maybe I'll last minute YOLO Annihilation Legion. Probably not, but maybe. I should not put that energy into the atmosphere. It will manifest 12 Ophidians for me.
Yeah. You could. We can have it just show up. Like that's a thing.
Ernest, will you eat a gobbler from Wawa? I'm gonna say no, and just hope that that's right.
I don't know what that is, so you're safe. I don't. Wawa is not a New York thing. That's a off in the distance land thing.
This is a long question. I'm gonna pin it, and we'll come back to it next week.
Okay.
Sorry, Dave. Anthony, because you seem to have army ADD more than anyone else, what helps you determine when it's time to shift armies, and how do you evaluate what's for you?
I definitely don't have as bad army ADD as Innes does, but or Jeremy, or honestly even Nathan, actually don't know how that landed on me.
No,
but okay.
You have like the best of any of us.
Yeah.
I went 8 months without playing the same army in back-to-back tournaments.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like probably the most aggressive like meta whore of the lot, but like even
I'm not even sure you are.
Not anymore. Now I'm washed up Euro trash teams, man.
Nathan is the meta whore among us somehow.
So more to answer the question though, a big part of what has me re-rolling is what I'm re-rolling to rather than from. So something has to come out that is like either literally what I'm doing right now but better, which may be the case when World Leaders releases, or have like a new thing that isn't currently in the game, right? Like from when I started in end of 8th up until pretty much when Drukari released, there wasn't a lot of like transport action going on, at least not like that I was seeing, because I was a pleb learning the game still. But when like an army came out that had an opportunity to do that on like a new way, and to play like a fast, aggressive elf army that wasn't like hide in the corner and jerk off with your spears until it was time to relive the old days, it was exciting, and that was like a reason for me to go do a new thing. Also, I played Dark Elves in Fantasy. So like that, it depends. There's always something, right? I can basically just like take you through the last little bit. Like Drukari was something new that was a better fast melee army than Blood Angels. Harlequins were doing a lot of the stuff that Drukari were doing before they got nerfed, and I was real tired of losing to Custodes. Nids was that Harleys got nerfed. I didn't realize that it wasn't that crazy, and I got reassigned for teams anyway, so I was like, new army it is. And then by the time CSM came out, I was just looking for any excuse to be free of my chitin prison, so I wanted to play anything but fucking Nids, and it just so happened that my favorite army in the game was really good. So that's like the sequence. And Emperor's Children happened to be good. It was like GW wrote Emperor's Children like for me personally, so it would have felt rude not to play it. So yeah, that's how I've made my decisions to reroll.
As someone with actual army ADD, I'll run you through how my process works. The second I'm not interested in playing my army anymore, I reroll unless I have a very strong reason not to.
Yeah.
which is like the exact opposite. I played Tyranids for as long as I did because one, I was really good at them and doing well, and nothing else made me comfortable being like I will do better with them. But Nids after WTC, I was so burnt out on them after playing them for so long that I basically rerolled into whatever garbage came up, which ended up being GSC, which I was happy with, and then bounced back and forth, played GSC a bunch. And I've played, like, I'm just doing RTTs with any army I feel like right now. I picked up the Thousand Sun stuff because I may enjoy it enough to want to play it, and it's really good right now, and it's something that I wanted to have access to anyway because I have most of a Thousand Suns army. I just didn't have rubrics and like the last characters that had come out. So like that's kind of how it goes for me. Is that if there's not a strong reason for me to stay with an army, I will bounce almost at whim. And I more than my fair share. Tyranids are my favorite army, but I really enjoy playing Chaos. I just enjoy the play pattern of it more than I enjoy Tyranids play pattern, despite preferring Tyranids as an army. So if there was a chance for me to play some Chaos garbage combat stuff, I will probably play that if it's reasonably viable, and I don't have to do a lot of work to get to it. Which is why Thousand Suns has come up, and I've played a bunch of demons because I have demons already. But I'm like just far enough from a demons army that I'm like don't want to build and paint like Scarbrand and a bunch of demonettes and stuff like that. Where Thousand Suns was more along my play path anyway. That's kind of so army jumping is just kind of more of a natural thing that I have to resist, whereas Anthony looks for a reason to jump armies.
Yeah,
I think that makes sense. Do the extremely limited changes to terrain changes to FLG events change your opinion on how bad the terrain is?
Oh, fucking.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So, yes, a ton. This is a huge, huge deal that Frontline was willing to step up and actually make some change. And I want to give them as much praise as I physically can for doing that. Listening to and responding quickly to feedback are two of my biggest complaints with them. And in this specific scenario, they did an amazing job of quickly pivoting. I went from being like, oh, I paid for LVO, I guess I'll go, to like, fuck yeah, now it'll be a fun tournament on top of all the other things being enjoyable as well. The community makes me laugh a little bit here because everyone was real like up in arms and they were like, yeah, a lot of stuff needs to get changed. And Frontline was like, made some changes. And they were like, yeah, but what about magic boxes? And then they were like, cool, got you, fixed it right away. And then they posted it and then people were like, these are pretty limited changes. And it's like, well, what the fuck, man? Like, they're doing what they can within the context of not spending more money. Is that like a thing that they maybe should do? Sure. But like in terms of like getting them to do things and doing them quickly and responding to feedback, this is a massive, very welcome change. And I am thrilled that they did it.
And I will add that even if they wanted to throw money at it right now, we are 2 months away from LVO.
Yeah, a
there are some
500
things,
table event.
Yeah, there are some things that just cannot be changed in that period of time. So the fact that they are responding to changes and responding to the feedback that we as the community have been giving them is fantastic. Yes, they are essentially $0 changes, but they're good changes. Not like they made their terrain worse.
Yeah, they're great changes. Like it's a big deal. Especially if you look at like I have the ingrained like PTSD muscle memory to look at the sets and be like, oh god, and then I look at what's blocked now and I'm like, oh, it's usable. Awesome. Great. It's fine. Because I remember looking at those sets when I was deploying those pieces of terrain and being like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with this? And now you have like a real thing that you can do with them.
I'm looking forward to carrying a printout of the rules for myself so that I know what the fuck my terrain does. That's the one thing I don't like about it is that it's now you can't just look at your terrain and know what it does. You got to look up the fucking frontline chart as well.
It's pretty easy, and also you probably would have had to do that anyway because a bunch of those have keywords you may or may not expect.
Exactly, like heavy cover. Right?
So like it's a big deal. It's a very, very big deal. Like heavy cover. Is that what you just said? Yes.
Yeah. Cool. Props to Frontline. Massively happy with this change that you guys did. I think it's going to be good, and I'm looking forward to LVO even more now. I showed you my list. Please respond. Questions. God, there's so many questions. How are the journeys in GSC Land? I've not played them since Coventry. I'll wait until Eric changes it, and then I'll change it to see if I want to change it. Until then, I'm pretty happy with the list I wrote. play
Yeah, it seems like
120 if you want to be Eric.
It seems like the one you played at Coventry hit a nice balance between like having lots of Neos and having like entirely Neos. So
Yeah, it was nice having combat. Like the Gene Stealers are good. I do like playing with them, and they give you that one turn rush of feeling like your army does something on turn one,
right.
Which I enjoy.
It really sucks when you play an army that goes first and you're like,
done. I'm gonna R&D here.
Yeah.
What qualities do you look for in a starter learning army? No idea. I've not been a starter for over a decade.
What is it?
What qualities do you look for in a starter or learning army?
Yeah, so if you were to teach someone a new army or teach them on the game, what would you use?
What do they want to play? It'll be more
Yeah.
interesting.
I don't really think that any army is particularly easier to learn than others, with a couple notable exceptions.
I would go the other way, where I would push them away from things rather than towards them.
Like, it's probably really easy to learn knights. I would not recommend them as a starter army. It's kind of almost the opposite.
It was not good for my development, I'll tell you that much.
If I was like at gunpoint, pick an army that you have to play right now as a starter, I would recommend you play either Chaos Space Marines, but not Bile, Custodes, but like bike heavy with a couple dreadnoughts, or like a meta turreted list. That are kind of like the ways I would look, because those are all lists that will reward you positioning but have enough get out of jail free cards that they can use. So they're not all like in terms of massive competitiveness, but you can do something with all of those almost every phase.
I like that the get out of jail free cards and the Tyranids are just the data sheets. It's not like stratagems that you have to use or anything. It's just like, yeah, that has about 3 more wounds than it should. Just you'll be all right.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like, if you could take 3 wounds off by tyrants, I wouldn't complain.
Yeah. I was talking more about like pyrovores and shit, where it's like, why is that 5 wounds? What are we doing?
How prevalent are team tournaments in the US compared to Europe?
Not compared to Europe. They don't exist. Like, we don't even play teams compared to Europe. In general, there's a couple.
Yeah, there's maybe a team event a month in the continental US, if that.
Yeah.
And I say that just from looking through the stats, because I have to filter them out because I can't do team events for stats right now. Whereas in Europe, I'm filtering out at least 1 a week.
Right.
And yeah, population difference, but
what do you want to see in the next mission pack?
A bunch of stuff. That's such a deep question.
Yep.
I think that's a next episode discussion.
Can I highlight my top 3?
Go for it.
More interesting deployments that aren't fucking 13-inch separation quarters. I hate that deployment type. It's by far my least favorite after Dawn of War. More hold 2, hold 3 missions, and the Warlord, the first Warlord is allowed to be free. Like all the other changes, like I don't like the 6 starting CP, but
fucking
first trade.
Any of the things that prevent you from getting CP, go away. Stop that.
Yes, thank you. Also, things that just turn off army rules, go away. Especially after this weekend. Abandoned Sanctuaries. I received a lot of feedback about that, and because it was our round 4.
Abandoned Sanctuaries is the second to worst mission.
The only one I'm broadly okay with of those ones is it Tide of Conviction that has you have to hold your home objective? That one I'm almost okay with.
Because if you lose your home objective, you screwed up something pretty horribly.
Yeah, I don't like the conversion one because it punishes you for making your warlord a character that wants to do things.
On GW terrain, on Tide of Conviction specifically, it's very easy to get shot off your home objective. That's the only one where it's like, but yeah, the worst mission by far is
Recover the Relics.
Recover the Relics. It's not close. Oh, that's not great. I don't love that.
If it's no mission change, but we get secondary changes, I'll live. I don't know. Anyway,
maybe if they do, just change something.
Bring Stranglehold back.
Yeah. But
who is the worst at spoof, and why is it Nassim?
Because he can't.
He can't not be smug.
Yeah, he has to be smug.
Looking back at your concerns with Nephilim pre-launch, how on the money do you think you are? We should probably just do a bonus episode on missions at some point.
We should.
We should definitely do a bonus episode about that specific thing, because I don't even remember what I said. Oh, I know.
Alpha strikes are way stronger than they were.
I was going to say, I know one thing that I said that I am for sure 100% on, and that is alpha strikes are way stronger. I would have played much more of that game against Nassim at Coventry had I gone second in Knockmend.
Okay, Alpha Strikes are way stronger than they used to be, and I use the same 2 stratagems every game,
Yep.
which are exactly the 2 things that we said were going to be the biggest problems with this. And there is so much less diversity in list building in terms of Warlord Trees and Relics.
Yeah.
Yep.
Boy, I
Which
use
were
all
all things we
slot.
called.
Though I don't know that would have been different in Knockman.
Chaos Space Marines only getting 2 combat characters instead of 4 is nice, though.
Come on.
Um,
We would have had 5, by the way, because we have 2 Sergeant Relic Warlord traits.
Yeah, that's probably fair. Do you think Big Bird might come into Demon's List as an adaptation for Dwarves? I think it might. I think you shouldn't.
Yeah, it might. People might try that and then get Ymir stratted once and be like, "Wow, that was a fucking waste of my time."
Ymir and Core Busters and fail 1 save and you're dead.
I fucking
just
hate
any of
War
them.
Armies, man. Such a dumb mechanic. If this Discord was a D&D character, where would it be on the alignment chart?
Chaotic good.
What is rock
Chaotic
bottom?
good.
No, chaotic good.
Yeah.
Like, we do a lot of like very wholesome community group work for especially when someone like admits that they're trying to do something, but it's never
bullying.
Yeah, it's always madness.
We will bully you into doing the right thing. It's basically what Anthony is saying.
No, it's always like good things, right? Like it's all upside, right? Like someone mentioned that they were going to quit smoking, and then 5 people offered to buy them things if they make it to Mythicos without smoking.
Yeah, it's an interesting Discord. I highly recommend it. Ines, what are you most looking forward to and apprehensive about Joycey? Well, one thing is saying it like that. I feel like that will get me stabbed. He wrote that, by the way. I'm not being racist. I am looking forward to. I don't really know. It's hard to quantify. I'm looking forward to the general vibe of it. I am most not looking forward to probably eating like more calories than I do. Like I'm a big guy. I eat a lot of food normally. I feel like I'm going to eat a lot more in America.
Dude, your food is so much harder to eat than ours. It's not even funny. You'll be fine.
Harder to eat?
Like the density of calories in a Scottish meal is just unmatched.
Okay, I think I'll be all right then. No, I don't really have a specific list. I'm really looking forward to playing an event in America. I'm going to do what Adam Camilleri did to New Zealand. Nope, I'm not answering a bad question, Zane. Why doesn't Thanksgiving get the respect it deserves as a topic holiday? Because he's Canadian and I'm not American. I'm Scottish. So
yeah, it's a real banger, but it definitely doesn't get the respect it deserves. It's also not top 2 because you don't get enough days off work for it. It's Halloween and then like New Year's or Christmas or whatever.
Yeah. Then we do ours at a reasonable time of the year.
Yeah.
How do you plan on ruining Innes's innocence? Are you going to wait for Vegas or give him the dirty jersey?
That's Tim's job come Vegas.
And Tim's not going to Vegas, so I'm going to be fine.
You're fine now. Tim might be coming to WTC next year, even just to fuck
That
around
would be
with us.
cool.
Oh.
That would be awesome.
I would enjoy that very much. Just a basic question. Can you guys go over how you define a list faction? If it's pure, it's that faction. If it's not, it's a soup faction.
Yeah, the exception to that is Abaddon in CSM lists, because I just grade that as it's a CSM list and Legion, because Abaddon is weird. But if Abaddon's in a Dogwalker list, then it's a Chaos list because there is a different detachment than just Chaos Knights. Simple as that. If there are multiple detachments, it's a soup list. If not, it's a pure list.
And then that's the same for like assassins in marine armies and shit like that.
Yeah, well, assassins. The thing is that assassins don't take up a detachment unless you run their vanguard.
Yeah.
So it's just a pure list.
But I mean, Abaddon does technically go to Supreme Command, right? So he is a separate detachment.
Can we talk about someone running a vanguard of assassins? What are you doing?
Hey,
I'm paying the 3 CP to take 4 different assassins because you have to take all one of each to not have an HQ in that detachment.
Yeah.
Do you think the new guard approach to factions is the way forward to try and prevent the current situation in which a lot of books have what is considered the best sub-faction and Relic Warlord combo? Guard will have that as well. They just have less options.
Yeah, I don't think removing options changes.
I think it's fine. I don't dislike it. I think cutting out a bunch of Relic stratagems that don't need to be faction specific is fine. I don't dislike the way they've done it. It's just inconsistent with everybody else, but fine. I don't really care. It's a cool system. The fact that Born Heroes is Born Soldiers is wildly better than all the other options is, a bane on the faction's diversity, but it's not They just exist to be extra hazard traits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I'm not the only person that constantly calls that Born Heroes.
I played way too much Iron Hands. Now that the FLG's responded to feedback, what is the next thing you want to fix in 40k? Dawn of War.
First drop advantage.
I take this to be 40k in general. Dawn of War.
I think the event runs too long to not have Dawn in there in some facet. If anything, I would just rather they got it out of the way early.
Oh, you're talking about like specifically LVO. I'm talking about Warhammer total. Like just remove Dawn of War. Like you said, fix 40k, not fix LVO.
Boy, engagement range probably.
Yeah,
that's like fixed for you because you play mostly WTC FAQ events, but like you still play them UKC events and it ain't fixed.
I have never had it come up. It's really weird, but I play 25mm based combat units, so
yeah. So like
it's got big Gene Stealer privilege.
Yeah,
6 turns. 6 turns. Bring it back.
No,
I play far too little 40k.
No,
game's usually over by 5 anyways.
I don't think
but it's not always over by 5.
Yeah, I think that would have a bad knock-on effect to a bunch of things, but it would buff Death Guard, which is cool.
I don't think it would have that many bad knock-on effects.
I think it would have a bunch.
Like you would just change the way you do scoring to accommodate for it, but like having an extra turn isn't necessarily a bad thing.
I think a lot of the times when I see Tau lose, it's because their opponent was able to slow them down for just enough turns.
Yeah, fair. But you
like
build the play list differently for 6 turns.
Yeah, like the eyeball fuck you armies get way stronger in those layouts.
I also actually though, like, can we just go ramp the damage on the game down about another 30%?
That would be nice.
I think damage output's fine for the most part.
I don't care what you think about damage output, to be honest.
Saying.
After the last like 2 years of interacting with you about 40k, the only thing I disagree with you on almost all the time is what you think appropriate damage output is.
Yeah. Bye. Slap.
How do you go about killing your darlings? You just kill them, bro. They were there, now they're not.
That is legitimately hard to do. Like, there's definitely some stuff where it's like once you're like used to having it, not having it anymore is rough, right? Like your favorite pet unit that does like a roll or does like a thing. Like it's very easy. I was this close to that being me with a couple of things. Like Smash characters is usually what gets me with that because I have a lot of games because I'm good with them partially where like they will just carry the game by themselves. And almost never are those resources better spent somewhere else. But sometimes there are. Like not having Abaddon's Warlord trait for Coventry was 1,000% the right call. But I was worried as shit about it the entire time. So like being able to do that, big deal. Was it easy to do? Fuck no. And that stuff like that happens a lot.
The real answer is if you can't do it yourself, find a support system that will help you check yourself.
Yeah.
Whether that's like having a team or a friend group or a coach to just call your bullshit, and then if you can't stop yourself, at least acknowledge it beforehand and understand that if you're playing with limitations that they're self-imposed and not blaming them for what happens. Like you can play a Snowflake list. You sure fucking can bring a Snowflake unit. You can play Centurions and Blood Angels. But you have to acknowledge that if you lose because of your Centurions and Blood Angels, it's not because Centurions are bad, it's because you brought them knowing they're bad.
Yeah. And they are bad, so don't do that. But the like I am very aware of the fact that I am likely going to evaluate world leaders as being better than they are because I want them to be good so fucking badly. And they're just not going to be that good. Like, it's just not going to happen. It's very unlikely that the monophase walk at you army only have rhinos for speed is going to be very good. But I really want them to be good.
Yeah, if they are like a 48% win rate army, Anthony will be expecting them as if they're 65.
Yeah, 100%. Like, if their win rate isn't garbage, like, if I don't feel like I'm just fucked in, like, half the games I play, I'm at least going to try them.
Yeah, they're going to be Anthony's GT army if they're like close, if they're like B tier.
Even B.
Okay, last couple, which we're going to have to speedrun because I need to sleep. In this, which army would take to the US and why is it Votan? I don't know. Ask me again in 2 weeks. I will literally make the decision like the day I have to submit. I do not make decisions about lists before that. Like, it's just not how I work. Who are the winners and losers of the new Votan and IG meta? Votan and IG.
Yep.
That feels
answered his own
reductive.
question. That was amazing.
Maybe T-Sons with Flamers?
T-Sons with Flamers seem good into all of the
Seasons
stuff.
with Flamers until January.
Yeah, but January, the LVO's in January, dude. What's your biggest learning lessons as a TO, and what would you do to encourage others to run events?
Oh, I think the biggest one is you really need. The biggest one for me has been learning how to build trust with players, because when they come to you with a question, they want to know that you're giving them a fair answer either way. Like if they're coming to with a rules explanation, you need to be able to dive into that. Maybe pull another player aside if you aren't entirely comfortable with it and say, "Do you mind if I grab, this guy over here, because I know he knows your army really well." The other one has been, for me, finding a way to normalize judge calls, normalize getting the TO involved in the games. It's something that I've gotten a lot of really good feedback for. It doesn't work with every event because you do need a fair number of people to make it work. Like a good example of this, I think LVO has like a dozen judges and there's 1,000 players. You can't do that. Whereas if you're at Mythicos and there's 2 people running the event and there's 40 people, you can do that. You can have people involved in the games, watching things. The biggest thing for me is not being afraid to call out things when I see a player doing something wrong, but doing it in as gentle a way as possible so that they don't feel like they're just being called out. Like a really good example of that.
Games is difficult. Even like as a bystander, I've started like at events talking to the people. I'm like, if I see somebody playing a wrong, could I go and grab a ref for them? Which has been something I've been trying to do more and more, because or when I see my friends getting cheated, I'm like, do you mind if I tell you that you're cheating here, Chris? No, sorry, what?
Yeah, like a really good example of that was it was happening on one of the bottom tables at my event. T-Sun's player was playing into a Space Wolves player, and they had taken behind enemy lines, and they were cult of duplicity, so they had cast the teleport spell, and they were going to put a spawn in the backfield. And I was like, "Are you sure you're able to do that?" Like just basically kind of nudging them, like, I don't think that they have the cult keyword, which means you aren't going to be able to teleport them. And so they looked in their book and they said, "Oh no, I can't do that. I'm sorry." That also led to a realization that they had done it for 3 games in a row. So they were like, that was an awkward discussion to have with their other opponents. Yeah. But it's also one of these things where I was like, yeah, mistakes happen. This is a complicated book. It's a complicated game. We all are going to make mistakes. I've made mistakes on games, and I've gone back to my opponent afterwards and said, "I'm sorry. I didn't intend to, but I cheated you. I made a rules mistake." And so I think that's the biggest one, is being comfortable with calling people out on that and being involved in games. Like the finals game, I spent 90% of my time there. Like I still responded to all the calls that happened, but instead of wandering the tables, I spent about 90% of the time there to make sure that both players had a very good experience, but both players played cleanly, which wasn't really a concern because they were both top level players. But it was, again, that if anything happened to come up, if anything happened to be of question, like at one point there was, "I can move 10 inches and see you." "No, you can't." "Jeremy, can he move and see?"
Right.
Resolved right then and there. And that level of activity and that level of interaction means that games never reach a point where there's conflict between the players. So that's the biggest thing for me, is that active involvement with the game. You can't just
playing a game with a judge like at your table the entire time is really nice for a lot of reasons, and really stressful for a few others, but yeah, really nice.
For sure.
I loved it at Coventry. Yeah. I mean, mild like friend with the judges privilege there, but like also like in general they were like very non-intrusive, and if we ever had a question, we literally just looked to our left, right? Like it was just like, what what right. Do how fix
Anthony, Australia tattoo
when I have a fucking minute to do literally anything.
Why don't no Paul, fuck off.
Yeah.
I see that question. Nope, Paul.
Eat shit, Glarg.
What was your process for painting the Thousand Suns battle ready? Dry brush and then paint details. Same as all my shitty painted armies.
I thought your GSC looked cool.
You should not have. You did not look at the infantry very closely. It's what all.
Well, yeah, you
The
don't
bikes
look at
looked all right.
40k armies closely generally, right? Like
No,
that's
no,
the
but
idea.
they were like. So the GSC models are not even washed. They are just base coated, and like that's it.
From like over there.
There's 80 of them. That is true.
Yeah.
Do you have a great comeback story from a losing game?
A great comeback story. Because of how I play, that doesn't really happen. Like if I end up behind, it's like, and we're done here. We lost. Oh, that's actually not true. I had one game at LVO last year, actually against someone you've played in us, against Nathaniel, where he went first with Emissaries Dreads, and I just did not respect that army enough. So I had
I
like
warned you.
Yeah, I had Talos just like on the line. I was like, fuck you. And a Spear Dread ran up and just clapped two of them. And I was like, and then the next, he put his whole army in the middle behind that. So I killed the Spear Dread. No, I failed to kill the Spear Dread. And I was like, what the fuck? It was bad. It was bad. We got there, but it wasn't pretty. Both times I've played against Nathaniel, he was playing Custodes and I was playing Drukari, and every time I've won by like 1 point, 3 points. It's always like when I like drag my broken body's army across the finish line and herd the prey wins me the game.
I've played too many 40k games at this point to be able to specifically remember one as being a great comeback right this second. If you gave me, like, I will potentially try and grab one for next week's episode, but right this second, my brain is fried at 1 a.m.
Yeah, that's fair.
I've definitely played a bunch of games where it's like the last fucking flip of the Maelstrom card or the 4-up rule to end it, where I've been like down the whole game and you get up and catch it. It's not that bad, man. I know you're looking at it like it's weird, but it's not that bad.
It's bad.
It's not.
If I wanted to get top deck, that I kept playing Hearthstone.
Yeah, I don't play a lot of games like the way that I play 4K as well. It's like I try not to get alphaed off the board, and when it happens, it's usually because something's gone catastrophic.
Yeah, just fucked.
It's like, yeah, man, I sure did get alphaed off. I don't have any recourse, or I blunt the alpha. Like that's kind of the way that it plays out.
Yeah, for me, the one game that came to mind as soon as that question was asked was finals and RTT, so not really high stakes. I was playing my Custodes into my buddy Francois Drukari. He had bottom of turn. We were playing Abandoned Sanctuaries, which has that really, really fun rule at the end of the game where whoever controls the middle objective gets that extra 5 points. He put 5 Grotesques into 3 Wardens.
And killed none.
Killed 2 and left the last one on 1 wound after Feel No Pains. And because it was pre-nerf, I had OBSEC on the point and he had nothing. And we worked it out between all of the secondaries, primary swing, because it was also bottom of turn primary that I was denying for him. It was a 19 or 18 point swing, and I won the game by 1 point.
I would have been so mad.
He was very mad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels weird. I don't have a story like that off the top of my head. I'm sure like I've had games that have come down to stuff like that, but I very rarely have. I don't have any recollection of it, which means that it probably hasn't happened as much as I think it has. I don't know. It's maybe just not the way that my playstyle works out, or the way that I choose to play the game hasn't worked out.
Most of the time, that's true for me. Like if I all in and then miss, I get railed and lose. Like.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of the times where I was in a hole, it's like just I went second against an army that did a bunch of damage to me turn 1, and I don't really feel like that's a comeback story. It's just using your resources.
Yeah.
I know I can't really recall a game where I'm like super behind on turn 3 and on turn 5, 6 it just recovers.
I mean, that's
like,
Necrons, right? Sometimes now you're down 40 points on the scoreboard and you just swing that bitch back.
Yeah.
Like 7th, 8th edition, I can definitely remember games where it's like I've needed it to go to 7 to get back in the game and stuff like that. Which is another statement that will make Anthony just like, what the fuck?
You needed what?
Needed the game to go to 7.
Oh. Yuck. Old 40K is so stupid. What a terrible game this used to be.
Okay, last one. Will Jeremy's Dark Angels be loyal to the false Emperor when he brings up the Mythicos?
Probably not. because they are probably going to stay on the shelf. I got vibe checked hard at War Masters, and it took me a month and a half to unpack them after War Masters because I just did not want to look at that army.
What are you playing?
What are you thinking of playing?
Probably Votan, to be honest, because I'm playing them the 2 weeks before.
You guys
But
are the
I might.
worst. I'm like, I'm gonna play Bile. Everyone's like, I'll play Votan. I'm like, cool,
Well, it's
thanks.
either that or New Guard.
Ugh.
Well,
New Guard is
illegal,
Because
right?
I'm not playing my knights on GW boards.
New Guard is legal. It'll be no data slate buffs at all, though, if you want to play.
Yeah, and it'll probably be no unreleased models as well, because that's reasonable. That's
So
what
no
I'm
Lord
enforcing
Solar
locally.
and
Yeah, you'd be down Bikes, Lord Solar, Creed,
Rough Riders.
Rough Riders.
Yeah, so it'll probably be Votan because that's what I'm playing right now. But I don't know. Maybe
Okay, so
I
I'm bringing
will
down
have
Sons of Flamers just in case I play Jeremy.
That list is quite bad in a Bile on GW terrain, dog.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I'm just not going to play you. You're going to lose to Votan.
I fucking might.
Yeah, I'm
Do
not.
you guys
sure what
just
I'm
lose
doing
track?
yet.
Do you just lose track of whose turn it is if you're both like you got Bile fighting berserkers?
Yeah, a little bit.
I don't, because I'm angry from the minute the game starts, so I'm hyper focused.
What happens? Have you played the Bile Mirror? Just like I'm going to ask this one question before I bounce.
No.
Does that not sound miserable?
Yeah. I'll win that because I'm the better person than anyone that's going to play Bile at this event, so it's fine.
That does sound fun. I want to. We used to joke about like Yanari players losing track of whose turn it was during Soul Burst activations.
Bile Mirror would make you sad. Yeah. If I thought there was going to be another Bile player in this event, I would change my Disco's lit out to Slanesh to take an elixir.
So I killed 2 possessed. Okay, so my 2 possessed are going to activate, kill your 2 possessed. You're going to activate, kill my possessed. Who kills your possessed? Who kills your.
That thankfully can't happen anymore because the fight bit. Like you can't have activated to fight on death.
No, but
I'm saying if I activate with my possessed.
yeah, but if you've got 3
What if
units
it's multiple
in combat,
units in combat?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah, it
just
can
don't
get
do
pretty
that. Don't
messy.
make that board state happen. What are you doing? Stop.
You don't need the multi-charge.
Ugh.
Right, I'm going to wrap it up there because Jesus Christ, I need to go to bed. Thank you everybody very much for being with us for StatCheck episode 20, The Kids Table. As always, you can find us every week at youtube.com/c/StatCheck. And if you'd like to support the show, you can check us out at patreon.com/StatCheck. We've deeply enjoyed having you all here for this slightly extended episode to make up for the slightly shorter one we had a couple of weeks ago. Thank you very much for everybody for being with us. Nobody's going to say bye-bye this week because Nathan's not here. And I like that. And that means Anthony's telling us to leave. So